Trump approaches, homeless veteran woman. What he does next shocks everyone. It was a crisp November afternoon in downtown Washington, D.C. The streets bustled with holiday shoppers and the occasional click of tourists' cameras. At the corner of 15th and K Street sat a homeless woman, her belongings packed in a faded green Army duffel bag. Her name was Angela Williams, a 42-year-old African-American veteran who had served 2 tours in Iraq. She clutched a cardboard sign that read, "Veteran, hungry, cold, please, help." Angela's face was weary, her eyes scanning passers-by who mostly averted their gaze. Suddenly, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up. A man stepped out, flanked by 2 Secret Service agents. It was Donald Trump, unmistakable in his tailored suit and red tie. Trump paused as he noticed Angela. His expression shifted. Curiosity mingled with a trace of discomfort. He turned to his agents. "Wait here," he said. The agents exchanged glances but nodded. Trump adjusted his coat and approached Angela. She looked up, startled but composed. "Hi there," Trump said, his voice softer than expected. "What's your name?" Angela hesitated, clutching her sign tighter. "Angela," she replied, her voice steady but wary. "Angela Williams." Trump crouched down to her level, his knees creaking slightly. "Angela, you're a veteran?" "Yes, sir," she said, her tone firm. 2 tours in Iraq, 82nd Airborne." Trump nodded, visibly impressed. "Thank you for your service. You shouldn't be out here. What happened?" Angela's eyes flashed with a mix of pride and frustration. "What happened? I came back, that's what. PTSD. Couldn't hold a job. VA took forever with benefits. And the rent? Forget about it." Trump leaned closer, his face serious. "That's not right. Someone like you deserves better." Angela smirked bitterly. "Deserve better? I served this country, and this is what I get. People walk by like I'm invisible." Trump paused, seemingly taken aback by her candor. He glanced around at the bustling street. A small crowd had begun to form, their phones out, recording the interaction. "Listen," Trump said, lowering his voice. "I don't have all the answers, but maybe I can help. What do you need right now?" Angela's expression softened slightly. "A hot meal would be nice. Maybe a roof over my head for more than one night." Trump straightened up and turned to his agents. "Get her something to eat. Find a hotel nearby, and make sure she's taken care of tonight." Angela stared at him, her skepticism giving way to a flicker of gratitude. "That's kind of you," she said. "But it's not just me. There are thousands of us, black veterans, white veterans, women, men, living like this. A meal and a bed won't fix that." Trump looked down, his jaw tightening. "You're right. It's a bigger problem. But every problem starts with one step." Trump reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the head of the VA right now," he said. "This can't wait." The crowd murmured, some still recording. Angela watched in disbelief as Trump dialed and barked into the phone. "Secretary McDonough? It's Trump. I just met a veteran, Angela Williams, 2 tours in Iraq, homeless on the streets of D.C. This is unacceptable. I want a plan on my desk by tomorrow addressing why this is still happening. Start with funding for minority veterans." He hung up and turned back to Angela. "I can't fix everything, but I can start pushing, and I will." Angela blinked, her emotions swirling. Gratitude, skepticism, hope. "I've heard promises before," she said. "How do I know this isn't just for show?" Trump met her gaze. "You don't, but I'll tell you this. If you think I'm doing this for the cameras, you've got it wrong. You deserve better, and I'm going to make sure people know it." The video of the encounter went viral within hours. Social media exploded with reactions, some praising Trump for his humanity, others questioning his motives. But for Angela, the moment was personal. The next day, she was placed in transitional housing thanks to a Trump-funded initiative. A week later, she was invited to speak at a veteran advocacy event, where she shared her story. "Meeting Trump was unexpected," Angela said to the audience, her voice steady. "I don't know if his promises will stick, but for the first time in a long time, I felt seen, and sometimes that's where change begins." As Angela's story spread, the nation grappled with its larger issues. The stark reality of homelessness, racial inequality, and the neglect of veterans became a topic of national debate. Angela, once invisible, became a symbol of resilience and a voice for those still unheard. And Trump, for better or worse, he became part of the conversation, his actions that day sparking both criticism and admiration. That night, after being settled into a small but clean room in a nearby hotel, Angela lay awake staring at the ceiling. The day felt surreal. A man she had only seen on TV, a symbol of wealth and power, had stopped to talk to her, listened to her story, and promised to help. But Angela's trust was not easily earned. She replayed the moment in her mind, scrutinizing Trump's words, his gestures, and even the way he looked at her. Was it genuine? Or was she just another pawn in a bigger game she didn't understand? She thought of her platoon, her brothers and sisters in arms, many of whom didn't make it back. She thought of James, her closest friend, who was killed by an IED, and how she had promised to live a life worthy of their sacrifices. "I failed them," she whispered into the darkness. Tears welled up, but she quickly wiped them away. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from a local veterans advocacy group that had heard about her story through the viral video. They wanted to meet, to amplify her voice, to give her a platform. For the first time in years, Angela felt a flicker of hope, not just for herself, but for the countless others like her. Meanwhile, in his New York penthouse, Trump sat with his advisors, reviewing the fallout from the video. "This is a PR nightmare waiting to happen," one advisor warned. "The media is going to dissect this from every angle. They'll say you're pandering, trying to cover up your record on race relations and veterans issues." Trump waved him off. "Let them talk. It's not about them. This woman served her country, and she's sleeping on the streets. That's what matters." Another advisor interjected, "If you're serious about this, we need more than a phone call. We need a long-term plan, real funding, real advocacy. This could become a cornerstone of your legacy." Trump leaned back, his expression contemplative. "Fine, then we do it. But it's not just about her. It's about fixing this damn system. Too many people like Angela are being left behind, and it's not just her community, it's all over." A month later, Angela stood in front of a crowd at a veterans rally in Atlanta. She wore a crisp new suit donated by a local nonprofit and a pin with the 82nd Airborne insignia. Cameras flashed as she took the podium. She hesitated for a moment, then began, "I am not a politician. I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a soldier who fell through the cracks. But what happened to me isn't just my story. It's the story of thousands of veterans, especially veterans of color, who gave everything for this country and came back to nothing." The crowd murmured in agreement. "I met Donald Trump last month," she continued, her voice steady. "I didn't know what to expect, but he listened, and he promised to help. Whether you love him or hate him, that moment reminded me of something important. We don't need perfect leaders. We need people who are willing to act. And we, the people, have to hold them accountable to those actions." The crowd erupted into applause. Angela's story sparked a wave of discussions across the country. News outlets highlighted the racial disparities in veteran homelessness, showing how Black and Hispanic veterans were disproportionately affected, Activists rallied behind Angela, using her story as a springboard to push for systemic changes. Trump, for his part, launched a new initiative focused on veteran homelessness. While some criticized it as a superficial gesture, others acknowledged it as a step in the right direction. He partnered with private organizations to fund housing projects and mental health programs, prioritizing underserved communities. Still, the backlash was fierce. Pundits dissected his motivations, activists demanded deeper reforms, and skeptics dismissed it all as political theater. But Angela remained resolute. "I don't care about politics," she told reporters. "I care about results, and if this moment can shine a light on what we've been fighting for, then it's worth it." Months turned into years. Angela became a prominent advocate for veterans' rights, testifying before Congress and speaking at universities. Her grassroots organization, No One Forgotten, grew rapidly, providing housing, mental health support, and job training for veterans across the country. One day she received a handwritten note in the mail. "Angela, you reminded me of what really matters. I hope you know how much you've inspired me and others. Keep fighting, Donald." Angela smiled. She didn't agree with everything Trump stood for, but she recognized the power of their unlikely encounter. It had ignited a movement far bigger than either of them. A few weeks after the rally in Atlanta, Angela found herself in Los Angeles, standing in the middle of Skid Row. She had insisted on visiting, not as a guest speaker or a rising advocate, but as someone who wanted to meet others like her, veterans and marginalized individuals pushed to the fringes of society. "I was you," she told a small gathering of homeless veterans sitting on makeshift cardboard mats, "and in many ways I still am, but we're not invisible anymore. People are listening." Among the group was Marcus, a Vietnam veteran whose tattered jacket still bore faded military patches. His face was lined with years of hardship. "People listen," he said bitterly, "but then they forget. They always forget." Angela knelt beside him. "Not this time," she said, her voice firm. "Not if we keep fighting. Not if we remind them every single day that we exist." Unbeknownst to Angela, a news crew had been following her visit. The footage aired that night, showcasing the raw humanity of the people she spoke to and reigniting debates about the responsibility of government, the private sector, and everyday citizens in addressing homelessness and racial inequity. Watching the broadcast in Mar-a-Lago, Trump leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. He turned to one of his advisors. "She's doing what I hoped she'd do," he said after a moment. "She's making noise. That's good." The advisor raised an eyebrow. "But you know this is getting bigger than just her. They're calling out decades of failed policies, systemic racism, and even your administration's track record." Trump smirked. "Let them. If it forces people to do something, then it's worth it. Besides," he added, "I'm not done yet." The next morning, Trump announced a summit in Washington, D.C., bringing together veterans groups, housing advocates, and even corporate leaders. He called it the Veterans First Initiative, aiming to create partnerships between the government and private organizations to tackle homelessness, mental health care, and job training for veterans. While the announcement garnered mixed reactions, it drew attention to Angela once again. Reporters reached out to her for a comment. A few days later, Angela was invited to the summit as a guest speaker. Standing in a room filled with politicians, business executives, and media, she felt both out of place and completely at home. This was her chance to speak directly to those in power. When it was her turn to speak, she approached the podium and paused, scanning the room. Trump sat in the front row, flanked by advisors. Their eyes locked briefly, and she began. "Mr. Trump," she said, addressing him directly, "I appreciate what you've started here, but I need to ask you something." Will this be another fleeting initiative that makes headlines, or will it be a real commitment? Will this effort help all veterans, including those who look like me? The room fell silent. Trump shifted in his seat but maintained eye contact. Because here's the truth, Angela continued. For too long, black and brown veterans have been overlooked. We've fought for this country just as hard as anyone else, yet we come back to fewer opportunities, fewer resources, and more barriers. If you want to make a difference, you need to address that directly. Trump stood up, breaking protocol, and walked to the stage. Taking the mic, he addressed Angela directly. "You're right," he said simply. "It's not fair and it's not right. That's why we're here. This isn't just about making noise, it's about fixing what's broken. And I'm committing today to funding specific programs for minority veterans. Hold me to it." The room erupted into applause, but Angela remained skeptical. "I will hold you to it," she said, meeting his gaze. "And so will everyone else." In the months that followed, the Veterans First initiative began to take shape. True to Trump's promise, funding was allocated specifically for minority veterans, including scholarships for education, grants for small businesses, and mental health resources. Angela, now leading her own organization, worked tirelessly to ensure that the initiative delivered on its promises. She traveled across the country, meeting with local leaders and veterans groups to advocate for change at the grassroots level. During a town hall meeting in Detroit, a young black veteran named Tamika stood up to speak. "Angela, because of you, I got a job. I got my kids back. I got my life back. Thank you." Angela smiled, tears welling up. "It's not just me," she said. "It's all of us. When we stand together, we're unstoppable." Nearly a year after their first meeting, Angela was invited to a private event at the White House. It was a celebration of the progress made by the Veterans First initiative. Trump greeted her warmly, but Angela was quick to remind him of the work still left to do. "This is a start," she said, "but there's so much more. Veterans of color are still falling through the cracks. The system is still broken." Trump nodded. "I know, but I'll keep pushing if you do." Angela extended her hand. "Then let's make sure we don't stop until it's done." As we reflect on this powerful story, let's remember that real change begins with action, whether it's a small gesture of kindness or a bold decision to stand up for those who are overlooked. Angela's journey reminds us that no one is truly invisible if we take the time to see them, hear them, and fight alongside them. In a world often divided by race, privilege, and inequality, we have the power to bridge those gaps with compassion, accountability, and a commitment to justice. It's not about waiting for someone else to fix the problems. It's about what we can do together to create a more just and equitable world. So here's my challenge to you. What will you do next? How will you make a difference in someone's life? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your ideas, and your own stories of resilience and hope. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that inspire and challenge us to be better. Together, we can make a difference, one story, one step, one act of kindness at a time. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.